Hi everyone, this is Paul here for the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the new moon in Libra, which takes place on the 9th of October at 3:46 am Universal Time, which translates as 4:46 am here in the UK because the clock is still forwards for the British Summer Time. I'll be outlining some of the key themes that this particular new moon involves and some of the key aspects to it which flavour it. Before I do that though, I just want to clarify that the astrology doesn't control our lives, it merely highlights what kind of influences are unfolding in the collective unconscious and what kind of spiritual themes can be learnt at this time and the general messages that are being highlighted to us. It's up to each and every one of us to actually align with astrology through getting grounded and listening to intuitive guidance and then taking the necessary action guided by wisdom to help with the unfoldment in our own lives so that we become more empowered. Now with the new moon in Libra, this is dealing with issues around relationships, it deals with diplomacy, cultivating harmony and developing peace both within and without, and it's learning to work or develop an attitude or work ethic based around cooperation and teamwork rather than going it alone. But it's also time for looking at what do we need to let go of, and with Libra one of the key weaknesses is indecision through mulling too much about the details and trying to achieve a balanced point of view before taking any action. And it's also about people pleasing, where we're so desperate to achieve peace and harmony at any cost that we lose sight of who we are. So it's important at the new moon that we reflect on these kinds of issues. Where do we actually have balance and harmony in relationships? And conversely, where do we either try and assert ourselves at the expense of the relationship, or where do we give in and sacrifice our own needs in order to maintain peace at any cost? Because neither of these options are particularly healthy. For true peace and harmony to unfold in relationships, we need to be at peace within ourselves, and we need to make sure that relationships are built around mutual honouring and mutual respect and mutual love. Now the ruler of this new moon is Venus. She is retrograde in Scorpio right now, so this particular new moon will be heavily influenced by this, and it's one thing that this overall means for us is that we need to observe where our relationships imbalanced, what changes do we need to make so that we're honouring ourselves in relationships, and are there any relationships that we're ultimately going to have to let go of, or that we're going to have to take a step back and have a more distance kind of relationship, or keep the other person more arm's length rather than close, because the relationship doesn't honour who we are and the other person isn't prepared to compromise and allow us to be who we are, because they want us to conform to their expectations without them doing any work themselves. So Venus is really bringing up these imbalances, but it's also highlighting our value side of things. So we're seeing, do we truly value things like honesty, equality, trust and peace within our relationships, or do we simply say these things verbally but we don't actually follow them up with our actions? So first and foremost, we need to create this balance on the inside. We need to develop a strong and healthy relationship with ourselves first, through letting go of what no longer serves and allowing our value systems to transform, and allowing any imbalances in relationships to come into our conscious awareness so we can then confront them, and either the relationship is transformed to the better, so it now has a foundation of mutual trust, mutual love and mutual sharing, or the relationship continues to be imbalanced because the other person won't budge from their stance because they're used to getting what they want from us without giving back in any way, in which case either that relationship has to move to more a distance relationship where the other person's kept at arm's length, or it has to be let go of altogether because the relationship doesn't allow us to be who we are. As I mentioned earlier, Libra, whilst it's about relationships, it also, being an air sign, has a strong emphasis on communication, and Libra reminds us that sometimes to communicate truth to someone in a way that person will hear it and listen, we have to do it in a more tactful way. So it's not about accusing the other person, such or doing fault finding or pointing out their flaws in a ruthless way. It's more kind of gentle upliftment. It's pointing out where there's a discrepancy, where there's an imbalance, and where our own needs aren't necessarily being met, and then trying to deal with things in a loving way. So at the end of the day, love needs to be the fundamental drive or motivation behind the way we communicate. Otherwise, we end up with the opposite of peace and harmony. We end up with conflict and outright aggression towards one another. So this is a key time where we need to look at the foundation of our relationships. What are the underlying dynamics of them? But most importantly, what is our relationship with ourselves? Because if we don't have a good relationship with ourselves, we can't have a healthy relationship with other people. If we don't strive to bring peace and balance to our internal landscape, how can we realistically expect to get peace and harmony in our relationships with other people? Because we ourselves are in chaos, because it's the whole as within so without. If we're at war within ourselves, if we're chaotic, we're constantly judging ourselves, and we're constantly projecting our shadow onto other people to avoid dealing with it, then naturally our relationships are going to be characterised by conflict and disharmony. So if we want to achieve this harmony, we need to first achieve it on the inside. We need to make peace with ourselves, we need to make peace with our shadow, and whatever is coming up at this time, we need to just accept it. And if it's something that we need to change about ourselves, have the courage to make that change, so that that change can then ripple outwards and change the dynamics of relationships. If, on the other hand, the imbalance comes from someone else, so they're getting all the benefit and we're not, it's at the expense of us, it's then remembering that we also need to set boundaries, or we need to make sure that we're being honoured equally in the relationship. So this may be a time where we have to overcome any tendencies towards indecision or people pleasing, and remember to stick up for ourselves, because it's only by setting boundaries that we can truly establish loving relationships. And by having these clear-cut boundaries that make it clear that this is what we're prepared to accept, these are the behaviours we won't tolerate towards ourselves, and that there are consequences towards it, because Libra does deal with the consequences of actions at the end of the day, and justice comes about through balancing or showing the eventual effects or enforcing consequences for actions. This then allows situations to be righted. This particular new moon is also aspected by a square from Pluto in Capricorn and inconjunct from Neptune in Pisces. So these two elements bring a more soulful dynamic into it. Pluto is about delving deep into the or deep to the root of an issue, and with Venus in Pluto's sign, this is further enhanced. So it's about, Pluto demands we'd be absolutely honest with ourselves, we'd be honest about where do we engage in people pleasing, or conversely, where do we have a tendency to be blunt and assertive and just try and steamroller over other people, and where we need to develop a more tactful and diplomatic way of doing things, and learn how to appreciate the power of cooperation, where people come together willingly to achieve a common goal as a team, rather than it being all about the self. So it's part of it is about the whole there's no I in teamwork, but it's that's something that we have to deal with the issues on the inside first, and we need to understand where do we have a tendency to try and control relationships, where do we have a tendency to or feel powerless in relationships and use manipulation to try and make things happen our way. And this is a time where we need to let go of this dynamic. We need to acknowledge that a healthy relationship can only occur if both parties are allowed to be true to who they are and honour the needs and honour the identity of the other person. So it's the whole love oneself and love one another dynamic all over again. Whilst Neptune in Pisces is an inconjunct, this reminds us that if we want to change the way we love people at a human level or personal level, we have to elevate the function of love beyond just the personal realm and into the universal. It's tapping into unconditional love. It's developing that patience, that compassion towards one another, and the psychic sensitivity, so we have a more intuitive understanding of one another, and we, through empathy, compassion and universal love, and unconditional love in particular, it's radiating those into our relationships, first on the inside, so that that unconditional love brings peace to our shadow side and it's brought into balance with our light, and this then can radiate outwards and bring peace and balance to the relationships in our lives. If the other person is resistant to the changes that we're now radiating through this internal alchemy, then the relationship will probably fade, because one is no longer going to work for our relationship needs, or no longer serves a part of our growth. Or if the other person senses it and is willing and starts recognising where changes need to be made from them, then a greater degree of harmony can be brought about. The core harmony and peace that needs to be made is between the soul and the ego, where the ego is no longer operating from the shadow. Through loving acceptance and spiritual alchemy, the ego is tamed and it works with the soul rather than trying to fight against it. And when we have this internal union, internal harmony between lower self and higher self, this then radiates outwards from us and radiates the energy of peace, rather than having to try and make peace happen through trying to change the external environment. So if we do this inner work of identifying where there are imbalances both within and without, we learn to see where our shadow is driving the situation, or where we're allowing other people's shadow issues to cause us to not assert ourselves, or to try and make peace with the other person so that their actions don't go without consequence. It's about remembering that actions have consequences, and for true love to emerge within relationships, both parties need to be honoured equally, and we need to understand that our actions affect our environment, affect the people around us. And if we can make sure the actions are imbued with love rather than selfish desire, then true peace and harmony can unfold within and without. So I hope this useful guide for the new moon in Libra. As I said, it's an opportunity, it's not a guarantee, we actually have to work with it. But the most important thing is we have to be grounded within ourselves and connected with the earth in order to open ourselves up more readily to the energies from the astrology, and to be open to listening to the messages and making changes in our own lives to align with a new level of love and a new level of balance and harmony in relationships. If we don't work with the energies though, then situations won't change. The relationships will continue to have imbalance, and will continue to experience conflict within our relationships. So if we truly want peace and harmony, we have to remember to create that peace on the inside through bringing internal union to the different parts of the self, and then radiating that peace and harmony outwards. So I hope this useful guide for the new moon in Libra may bring you many blessings and many insights, and a greater degree of peace and understanding within yourself and with other people. So take care and be blessed.